So we're in Parshas Vayera, and like we spoke many times in our first of all, Chaim.
Right.
Like we spoke many times in our previous classes on Parshas Vayera, and the Rebbe talks about it in the Sikha, is that Parshas Vayera and Lech Lecha are really kind of one parsha. It's a continuation. It's Avram's life in Eretz Yisrael. Lech Lecha, he comes to Eretz Yisrael. He he has Yishmael, he's promised about Yitzchak, his life, he goes to Egypt, and then the parsha ends, he gets circumcised, and then it starts mid-conversation, he's healing from his circumcision, Hashem comes to visit him, and then continues the story of Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah, and then also the birth of Yitzchak, and then the Akedah. So it's seemingly, I mean, obviously there's a lot of verses, so it'd be a very, very long parsha if it was one parsha, but that's not enough of a reason to make two parshas. And the reason is because a parsha is always a full story. And it's very important that we find this mainly in Bereshis, is that the fact that the parsha begins and ends is telling us that we have to find the energy from that space. Like we talked many times about parshas Vayeshev going to Miketz, that Vayeshev and Miketz also Vayeshev is like hey Pinchas, that what's his name is Yosef is in the prison, and then Miketz is like Paro's dreams and how Yosef gets out of the prison. So the fact that the parsha ends after Vayeshev and it finishes that Yosef is in the bar is that we have to find energy in that space itself. And the space difference in our parshas is the Avram before and after circumcision. Avram in Lech Lecha was before circumcision, and up until the circumcision, that means he reaches the completeness of Avram as a person, as an individual, how he worked on himself to become an Eved Hashem and Oved Hashem and Avram Oyavai. He served with love. He served with yira, with service. At the end, we see clearly that that's not just the then, but it's a statement on always that he was a God-fearing Jew, and he was a servant of God, and he reached up until he could in his own abilities, and he was gifted the possibility of elevating even higher through circumcision. And therefore, Vayera Lavavaya comes a whole new parsha because it's a whole new reality of Avram. Now Avram is going out of no longer a person who's able to achieve the greatness of his or her potential, but he's gifted now the ability to reach beyond creation. The covenant between the Jewish people and Hashem in the circumcision is not just a covenant that God chooses the Jewish people. It's a covenant, it's a commitment of all of the mission. And the mission is that we're here to make a dir b'tachtonim. The purpose of creation is the commitment. And in the purpose of creation comes with it the ability that a yid has to be l'mayla midar chatava, to be beyond nature. It's a yid has been lifted up. Avram Avinu was lifted up. You lift it up to such a space where there's no limitations of nature. A person can't look at their life and say that there's no natural way of getting out of a situation, or things are just pashut the way they are. This is the way they are. You just have to accept it. But a yid knows that teva, nature, doesn't apply to Jews. This speaks a yom yom. The Rebbe speaks about it. That God gives the Jewish person the ability to reach, and everything's happened beyond teva, and our job is to bring it into the world. I mean, not to remain out of the world, but we're not dictated by the laws of the rule of the limitations and the laws of the world, and therefore Avram Avinu, when he reaches this, let me just tell it Shimon. Hold on. Shimon's asking. So Avram Avinu, this week's parsha, we're going into a whole new purpose. It's like a whole new ability to be effective in the world. And I'll tell you something. This week's parsha is a hard parsha. There's a lot of things that are interesting in the parsha. about peoples that are, we talk about in the Parsha, that affected the Jewish people in history. Yishmael, we learn, fast forward, we'll get to the whole Parsha as much as we can. And at the reading of the fifth reading, which is today, we read that Yishmael is lying sickly, almost dead in the desert. Avram Avinu provides for him food and travel food and water. But because he's sick, he consumes it all fast, and he doesn't ration his drinking. And he's stuck in the desert without any liquid. And his mother doesn't know, Hagar doesn't know what to do. He's a fever, he's sick. She leaves him on the floor and she goes away. She can't watch him die. And Rashi says that the angel comes to Hagar and says to Hagar that you have to know that God heard the cry of a nar, of the child, Basher Husham, how he is, means how he is now, and therefore he's going to live, and he's going to be a great nation, and he's going to be the great. And we don't find actually officially that Yishmael ever comes back to Avram. We find that he's alluded to at the end of the Parsha. He's one of the people who accompanied Avram to the Akedah. We find about his passing. We know that Esav marries into his family. But this is where he breaks off from Avram. He lives his own life. The Parsha says he becomes abandoned. He's robbing everyone. He's Yishmael, like Yishmael is. And it says, Rashi says that the angels say to God, why are you going to save him? He's going to cause so much sorrows for the Jewish people. The Jewish people are going to go through so much sorrows from Yishmael. Let him die. He's going to torment the Jewish people. He's going to starve the Jewish people. Just let him die. Who needs this? Who needs this sorrow? And God says, no. Masher Husham, how is he now? Did he do it yet? No. Now he's whatever. He's Yishmael. He's a wild child, but he's not deserving to die. He's Avram's son. We have to let him live. Notwithstanding of all the things that the angels said would happen and did happen. It's not like the angels said things are going to happen that didn't happen. They did happen. They happened till our time. It's happening now. With what's happening in Gaza, what's happening around us. And the reason I'm bringing it up, because last night before I went to sleep, I didn't sleep much because I'm not feeling well, but I was reading one of the interviews that's going to go on live tonight of one of the hostages that were just released in the past few weeks, of the incredible torture he went through. Even like Mama, she said that even the Nazis didn't torture like this. Every single day they tortured him physically, sexually, psychologically. He was tortured and tortured and tortured. And for 200 days, 2 years. And you open up the Chumash and you read this Rashi, and the angels are saying, let him die. Let him. So it's not an easy parsha. There's a lot going on. Hashem has his way. Harbid. We don't understand everything that's going on. We don't understand the tsar. We don't understand the pains that people go through. We don't understand. We don't ask Shilas on Hashem, but it's hard. It's hard to learn such a parsha. And so this is kind of the next Parsha, Parshat Vayera, where things kind of go up a level, where Avram's life changes. Avram now is circumcised. Avram is now a person of l'mayla miderech hatava, and it helps a person with all the challenges that we go through. And like I was just saying, we go through tremendous challenges that we know that we don't understand everything, but a yid has a beyond nature, mamish, l'mayla miderech hatava, of a purpose of being here. Like that, like today's a yom yom. The Rebbe says, you have something to do. What are you waiting for? Do it. There's so much you could accomplish. So much you could accomplish. And so we don't always understand the ways of Hashem. We don't always understand how even the angels said, God, this is not such a good idea. Let this boy start. But we know confidently that we have a tachan and a emunah in Hashem. That everything has a reason. And we have to know that we have a mission. That's the difference. We have to know and understand clearly we have a purpose in this world, and we have an ability beyond limitations to achieve it. And if sometimes we see that we fall under tremendous stress and tremendous things, it's not easy. It doesn't make it easy, but we know that somewhere or another we have a mission to fulfill. And Avram Avinu knew that. Avram Avinu, we start in this week's Parsha. Avram Avinu is standing there, and it's a small thing. It's a small idea. He's talking to God. He's talking to God. God comes to visit him. Imagine you go through a circumcision. It's painful, yes, granted. It's a difficult operation, especially at 99 years old. And God comes to visit you, to be Reifa Chaylim. God comes, knocks on the door. Who's here? God. What does he want? He's coming to visit you. You're sick. He's visiting the sick. We learned that a person has to visit the sick because God visits the sick. How, I mean, you would prop yourself up in your bed. So Avram Avinu wasn't in bed because he can't handle no guests. So he's waiting outside his tent. But God is visiting him. All of a sudden he sees three people. And he says to Hashem, I appreciate your visit. I really do. But sorry, I got to go. I have guests. And the Gemara tells us that from this we learn that hey Jeremy, from this we learn that God lachnas archim mikabalas bnei ashchim. Hosting people, having people as your guests is greater than sitting with God. Because Avram said to God, I have guests, I gotta go. Sorry, thank you for your visit, appreciate your efforts, but I gotta go. It's a Gemara, it's Gemara and Shabbos. What's the idea? Why would Avram Avinu tell Hashem? Hashem is sitting there, Vayera Lavavaya, not just, it's the major revelation of Yudke Vavke, the high name of Hashem, the name of Hashem that's beyond the world, the creator, and beyond creation, is revealing himself to Avram Avinu. And Avram Avinu says, Slicha, sorry, I gotta go. And the Gemara says, because hosting people is greater than meeting Hashem. And the Rebbe explains an amazing idea. In a Maimer, short idea, I'm going to teach later today. But the Rebbe says like this. That person wants to sit with God, it's all these revelations. Imagine God comes to you and says, I'm going to give you now the secret that no one knows. I'm going to reveal to you now something that no one has ever experienced before in godliness. But then, at the same time, you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, to have guests. Avram Avinu says, I know that what you're offering me is tremendous, great revelations, but right now I have an opportunity to do a mitzvah. That comes first. Ma'aseh Pa'al, actually doing a mitzvah, right now comes before even sitting with Hashem, not just that Hashem sits with you, but Hashem reveals himself to you. Vayera Lavavaya. Avram Avinu was able to come to the level, like the Rebbe says, after Bris Milah, he saw things. He didn't just hear things. He didn't just know things. He didn't think about things. It was clear to him godliness. And at the same time, he has an opportunity to do a mitzvah to three people he never met before. And chances are they're just passing by. And who knows who they are? They weren't chashva yidin. They weren't chashva people that, wow. They were just regular people that needed a meal. And Avram Avinu says, gotta go. Because everything is about the bottom line. Everything is about what can I do? What can I do? What's my mission? What am I supposed to be doing now? Am I supposed to be sitting with Hashem now and basking in the glory of the revelations of godliness? Or am I supposed to do a mitzvah now? Right now I could help someone. So he closes up his godly visit and he goes out and meets these three people. So it's a tremendous, although this is seemingly a small story, and you can't compare it to what we spoke about before, and we can't compare about the huge gap in understanding of difficulties versus action. But from here we see that Avram Avinu was very focused. That even most glorious revelation doesn't come to actually doing something. You have an opportunity to do something, you do something. And even in the hardest of times, even a person that's gone through mamish, it's shocking to believe that literally less than 100 miles from where I'm sitting, and a month ago, the person was still experiencing it. Was torture for Jewish people that was on a level that was almost unheard of before in history. And how do you get up and go forward? How do you wake up and how do you get up in the morning and say, you have to go out and do a mitzvah, you have to daven, you have to put on the film? Because that's what a Yid does. That's what a Yid does. A Yid knows that it's not about the great revelations and it's not about the dark, it's not about the challenge, it's about right now I have an opportunity to bring light down. I don't understand everything. You think Avram understood? It made sense to him that sitting with these three angels that dressed up as Arabs that were passing through for a meal, that it made sense for him to sit there and to give them food and make them cows and make them food instead of sitting with Hashem. I'm sure he would have liked to sit with Hashem. What does King David say? I want to sit in the house of the Lord. Okay, it's very nice to sit in the house of the Lord. But you sit in the house of the Lord when you could be doing something. When you have an opportunity to do something, you go out and do it. And that's really what we see in this week's Parsha. Avram Avinu, when he gets the elevation of Bris Milah, and he gets the elevation of Vayera, he sees visual. He doesn't walk away from that. He becomes more active, more focused. And when God comes to him and tells him that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah are horrible people, he tries to figure out a way to help them. No one wants to help Sodom and Gomorrah. The angels don't even want. The angels say he has to destroy the city. But Avram says, no, maybe there's a merit, maybe there's something, maybe we could find something that we could find to help these people. And then Avram Avinu goes, and even after Avimelech tries to violate his own wife, God tells Avimelech, you should know you're dealing with a very nice guy. That he knows he's going to pray for you, he's going to daven for you. Even though you stole his wife. And Avimelech, with all his claims of innocence, and I didn't know, that's all nice. But, he was the Rashi says clearly he was very suspicious that he was his wife. So if you're so suspicious that maybe it was his wife, so leave the lady alone. No, it says that Rashi is again the simple explanation. Pshuti Shemikra. Avimelech asked all the servants, all the animals, the camels, the donkeys. He knew all the languages of the animals, and he had one question. You think if you could speak to an animal, you would ask them something, I don't know, you'd ask them something that's fascinating. What's Avimelech asked the camel? Is this Avram's wife or his sister? That's all he wants to know. He's so self-centered, he's so focused on what he wants, that if he's talking to a camel, he's going to ask him something that's so foolish. So Avimelech claims innocence, but Avram Avinu still, he forgives him. He davens for him. He makes peace with him. And again, the peace that Avimelech made with the Avram Avinu made with Avimelech, the Jewish people suffered for it for thousands of years. David HaMelech couldn't conquer Yerushalayim because of the agreement he made with Avimelech. And Avimelech didn't hold his agreement, right? We're living in the same time, same place. Avimelech lived, where did he live? Avimelech lived in Gaza. And he made agreements and he broke the agreements. Avram Avinu said, we made an agreement, and Avimelech didn't keep them. The shepherds of Avimelech, again, he doesn't take responsibility. His shepherds are stealing Avram Avinu's water. They made an agreement, whatever. Avram Avinu passes away, they steal Yitzchak's wells. So nothing's changed. Avram Avinu, he's constantly trying to see how could we change things, and this culminates. It's brought up at its highest level in the Akedah. Akedah is Yitzchak. Hashem asks Avram Avinu, Kachnas binchas yechidcha shahavta. He says, Kachna, please. Avram Avinu had every reason to tell God it doesn't make sense what you're asking. First of all, it's not logical to ask someone to slaughter his own son. Second of all, it contradicts everything God told him about Yitzchak. Right? He said Yitzchak's the future. Yitzchak wasn't married, he had no kids. How could Yitzchak be the future if he's going to slaughter him? Avram Avinu had many things he could have said to Hashem that he wouldn't have been wrong. I mean, if someone comes to you and says, "I promise you this," and then you tell the person tells you to do something that totally contradicts the promise, the commitment, the friendship that we agreed to, you would say, "1 second, you told me that we have a relationship. You told me Yitzchak's in the future. How can I slaughter Yitzchak? Doesn't make sense." Avram doesn't say anything, doesn't ask a question, doesn't ask any questions. Hashem told him to do something, he does it. That asking, he wakes up early. No kind of tremendous strength it takes. I was telling someone yesterday that the ability to go through an asayim, the ability to navigate a challenge in life, and whatever that challenge is, I'm not judging anyone's challenge. People have all kinds of challenges. Whatever the challenge is that we have, and the challenges change. Today's challenge may not be tomorrow's challenge. But when you're going through a challenge, the ability a Yid has to get through a challenge is from Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was constantly challenged. Everything he's been told was always thrown into the wind. God tells him to go to Eretz Canaan, there's a famine. First famine in history. Everyone's blaming Avram. Literally, Avram just comes to town. How could you blame one person for famine? How could you blame the Jewish people for everything, right? Open up any news station today. The Jewish people are blamed for everything. Anything. Someone's shot, someone that's suicide. I'm sure the Mossad killed him. Why? There's no reason why the Mossad should kill him. Why not? It's easy finger to push. It's easy. It doesn't cost anything to say to suggest maybe that the Mossad killed him. Today, everything's like this. So Avram Avinu comes to Canaan, and right away there's the famine, and everyone says, "Oh, Avram brought the famine." What did he do? He just came. He showed up in a big country with his wife and his nephew and his cousin. What do you want from him? And he has to leave Eretz Canaan. He has to go to Mitzrayim. And his wife gets taken in the house of Paro. He could have asked a lot of questions. He had a lot of challenges. He had 10 challenges. But the ability we have to go through challenges is because Avram Avinu went through the challenge. Not the guy. And because he went through the challenge, it gives us the ability. And one of the things that sometimes we forget is we're going through a difficult situation. And we say to ourselves, why? Why is this happening? It doesn't make sense. It's so upsetting. That's right. These are very, like I'm saying, you can't open up the news today and read what we spoke about before about what the hostage went through and not feel upset. Not feel very upset. Very upset. I mean, 2 years to go through that daily, I can't even begin to understand. Can't even begin to try. No one can. Baruch Hashem, he was saved. What a miracle. But we don't. But a lot of times we have things we say we don't understand. But then we say, but if God was going to give us a challenge, that we'll be okay with. But this is not a challenge. This is just difficulty. How do you know? Maybe that's a challenge. Maybe the challenge is the difficulty. We separate the actual difficulty from the concept of a challenge. A lot of times we say that if God would challenge me, I'd be able to be perfect. But he's making life difficult for me. Maybe that is the challenge. The challenge is the difficult moment that you're in right now. That's what you're dealing with. That is the challenge right now. And how are you going to navigate it? And how are you going to rise above it? And how are you going to try to figure out how to be active in it? Avram Avinu was because he was an Isha Poyel, a person who was always doing something. So Avram Avinu was always able to find an opportunity to do something. Even if he's sitting with God, he's able to find an opportunity to feed someone. He goes to there because that's my Poyel. See, sitting with God is a nice experience. With all it's not putting down the idea of sitting with God. It's amazing. David, like I said, David says, but feeding people, that's actual. That's Maisa. This is a world of action. And today we were coming up this week on the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, Chav Cheshvan. And the Rebbe Rashab says that today we live in a time, Chatof uchli, chatof ushti. That a person, once upon a time, every time opportunity would come to them, they would think, is this opportunity for me? Maybe it's meant for someone else. Am I worthy for this opportunity? Is it beneath me? Is it above me? Am I the person that's supposed to be doing this opportunity? This comes up and calls you up and says, Jeremy, Pinchas, Chaim Sacher, could you come help in the kitchen for the Kiddush? You could think, someone has to help, of course. You can't expect one person to make the whole Kiddush, but maybe someone else can help. Maybe it's not my calling. Maybe it's something else. A lot of times, even small things, like feeding these 3 Arabs that are coming to Avram. Avram could have thought, let them go somewhere else. If they walk long enough, they'll find another. They walk far, they can walk another 5 miles, find another hotel, go to the next hotel. Avram says, no, it's an opportunity right now for me to do something. The Rebbe Shab says that once upon a time, a person could think, possibly, is this my calling? And a person could have a question. You want me to go out and tell someone about Yiddishkeit, about mitzvahs? I don't keep all the mitzvahs. I know I don't keep all the mitzvahs. You want me to tell someone about Shabbos? I don't put on film. You want me to tell someone, like a person can ask a lot of questions to themselves. It's not for me. Someone else is a big rabbi out there. He's going to do it. There's a big rebbitzin out there. She's going to do it. The Rebbe Shab says that maybe once upon a time. But today, anything that's given to you, you have to grab. Someone puts a piece of food, grab it. Put someone ahead of Shem. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think there was a cross line. Someone does someone puts a piece of a drink, you grab it. If there's an opportunity to do something, the Rebbe Shab says, there's no questions. You don't have to start asking yourself, is this my calling? Is this I'm the one who's supposed to be doing it? Is my time better spent doing something else? The very fact that opportunity, Dr. Henkin, I had a beautiful conversation with someone. He may listen to the recording, may not, whatever. So he's a person. He's not Shemesh Shabbos. He's not Shemesh Shabbos. He grew up in a frum house. He went through himself tremendous challenges. We learned together Shar B'Tachan. And so he tells me yesterday that last Friday night he was at a community of people that get together in an apartment in Jerusalem, and they're considering making him the rabbi. Whatever, it's not, maybe it's not the most orthodox setting. It's not exactly, it's not like anti-orthodox. It's just kind of, men and women together come together Friday night. They have a meal. They have a tefillah, and he's the guy giving the speech. So a person, so he could ask himself, am I supposed to be doing this? I mean, I'm struggling myself to figure out Shabbos. But the Rebbe Shab says, I mean, we live in a time today, that he was at that place and he was able to inspire people by Yiddishkeit and give people a chizuk. He spoke about Parshat Vayera. He told them the message of Avram. He wasn't saying something corrupt. He doesn't have bad ideas. He doesn't say things that are not true. He's not teaching things that are not accurate. He's just not holding by all the Torah mitzvahs. But he was able to sit there for an hour and speak to his community, to that little community, and teach them about the Parsha and teach them about lessons and how they could become better Jews and better servants of Hashem. Spoke about Shar B'Tachan. So that's what we learn from Avram. That's really what we learned from Avram this week's Parsha. We see that he was one step forward. He sees the guests, he sees the angels, he says to God, gotta go. Because it's a Maisa. Even though who knows who these people were, they dressed up as Arabs, they dressed up as travelers, and they didn't look like they had much to tell them and much to do. I mean, it ended up being they were angels. But you couldn't have blamed Avram if he would have said, I'm going to pass up the opportunity this time. I'm sitting with God. It wasn't even a consideration for him. It wasn't like God says, oh, you have a mitzvah. God didn't leave. God was sitting around. He figured, maybe Avram Avinu would sit with God. And Avram says, sorry, be Adoni, I gotta go. And same thing with stone. It says that Avram Avinu, so to say, he positioned himself. Rashi says he positioned himself to argue the argument, no matter what he would have to argue. If he would have to plead, if he would have to fight, he was ready to fight with God, not physically, but to argue it out. He was not going to give God an easy way out to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Again, horrible city. The Gemara tells us about what these people did. They were horrible people. Mamish horrible people. Avram Avinu he was ready to go to war for them. Doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. But he thought maybe there's something we could turn around over. Maybe we could turn this into an opportunity of Ma'aseh B'Poel, something. And again, he's forgiving of Avimelech. And even if he has to sacrifice his son, he does it because that's what Shem wants, is the action. Doesn't ask any questions. You have to remember something beyond logic, that Avram Avinu, and so we're going to finish with this. I get ready for my next class to give a shir in halacha soon. That the Avram Avinu says Vayera, that through circumcision he was elevated to visual. When a person has visual, you have clarity. And when you have clarity, one of the things is this has to be done now. You may not understand everything. Why? A lot of the arguments, right? The Akedah made absolutely no sense. It went against everything God told him about Yitzchak. It didn't make sense in God's character to ask someone to slaughter his own kid. But he had a clarity that I have to do what Hashem wants. Like the Rebbe used to say about Avram Avinu didn't even look for Mesiras Nefesh. He looked to see, what does Hashem want from me? And if I have to do Mesiras Nefesh, if I have to do self-sacrifice, if I have to go and do very hard things, I'm ready to do it for Hashem. If it's easy, that's also good. He wasn't looking for difficult. And therefore, no matter what it was, he was there as a person, Avram Oyevai, Avram, he was a servant of God. He's a lover of God. And he gave that to our children, to his children. And this is how you open up a parsha like this week, and you open up the news about this week. And as hard as some of the information is, and as hard as everything is, and as you listen and hear the angels, and you say, why weren't they pile? Why couldn't they get that God should let Yishmael starve or whatever? The angels tell God, let him die. But we don't ask questions, and we go forward. We move forward, because every single person has opportunities throughout the day to do ma'aseh b'pa'al, to do a mitzvah, to be nice to someone, to put on tefillin with someone, to inspire someone, to give someone a good word, to listen to someone, to acknowledge someone. There's so many. There's the smallest amount. I saw. Who says? Where did I see it? The Rebbe says, if a person's learning, I'm trying to remember in what context I saw it. If a person's learning, and someone comes over to him and says, "Hello, how are you?" and you ignore them because you're concentrating. The Rebbe says it's a thing. It's a horrible thing to do. You can say, "What do you mean? I'm learning now." The guy, he's disturbing me. You don't have to have a long conversation. You can say politely, but to ignore someone who says, hello, how are you, because you're studying, learning, there's no market for that. You pick your head up and you acknowledge a person, you say, oh, good morning, how are you? Everything okay, good, fine. I'm in the middle of learning now, we'll talk a little later. But these are the small things of actions, big and large, that Avram Avinu was very focused on, very, very involved. He wasn't going to ignore anyone. He wasn't going to ignore any situation. And they be taka that the next small thing to tip the scale. We suffered enough, mamish. We suffered enough. Am Yisrael suffered enough. The horizon doesn't look positive. So I mean, there's a lot of Torah mitzvahs. There's a lot of learning going on now that never was going on before. There's also a lot of pushback, a lot of anti-Semitism, irrational. Doesn't make sense, right? Like we said before, Avram Avinu comes to Eretz Canaan and they say, "Oh, you made it. You're the cause. The Jew caused the famine, right?" And all the things that they say now about the Yidden. We have to have bitachon gomer and Hashem. We have to be smart. We have to have riyah. We have to see things. There's times. Like Shlomo Melech says, there's times to do everything, and we have to know when what the moment calls for. We're not naive, but at the end of the day, it's all focused on action. L'chaim, everyone. Have a good Shabbos, Vayera. We didn't even get to Haftorah about the Kelim Reikim Al Tamiti. All we have to do is make vessels, and God will overflow them with blessings and brachas. So we should just make the vessels and don't stop making vessels. Vessels is actions. Do things, and God will fill up our blessings with oil, which represents Torah, which represents Chachma, which represents Parnasa, all the things that come with the blessings. Shekam B'Karav Mamish, the biggest blessing with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkeinu. L'chaim, l'chaim. Thank you all for joining. I just want to say again, there was, I think, a crosswire. I thought that there was going to go on the Chabad the University District Zoom, but I guess I misunderstood. Whatever, I didn't understand. I didn't know. So, but at the end, we got this one started. So, Laila Tov, everyone. Good Shabbos and take care.
Refuah Shlema, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.